Do you want to play better golf? Of course you do. Well, here are 3 easy ways to do it. 1. Open your smartphone and look for the podcast app. 2. Open the podcast app and search Breaking Par with Bernard Sheridan. 3. Subscribe and never miss an episode of great golf instructor interviews from around the world. A new guest every week, like David Ledbetter, Brian Manzella, Dr. Sashal McKenzie, James Siekman, just to name a few. Hear their insight as they deliver their wisdom of the game. Take control of your game. Subscribe today. Your game will thank you for it.
So Kyle, welcome to Breaking Par, and thanks so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So the first thing that we always ask every guest who comes on the show is, when is the very first time you picked up a golf club?
First time I picked up a club, I was 6. So my dad, it was my birthday. I went out to a par 3 course. My dad took me out there. First time around, I actually went out and shot 42. On a par 3 course, so I think they had one par 4, so par was 28 or whatever, 29, and then went out and played. It was the fact that the ball. I played baseball my whole life. My grandfather was a baseball player, so that was kind of my first passion. But when I did that, I liked the fact that the ball didn't move and it went 5 times further than a golf ball. So it was a quick thing for me to fall in love with, and then kind of played baseball and golf until I was about 12 or 13, and then I was either striking out like 12 times in a row but shooting par, or I was batting 500 and couldn't break 90. So it was one of the two. So I kind of made a decision and stuck with golf, which was a good decision. So.
And when did you make the decision to turn it into a profession?
I kind of knew I was going to play. I played on tour for 8 years, so I kind of knew I wanted to do that my entire life, to be honest. I mean, ever since when I was in middle school, my dad and mom would drop me off at the course at 7:30, and I would walk 56 holes a day walking. I mean, it was just head over heels in love with the game. So just played as much as I possibly could, as many tournaments as I could. Went to college out at Seton Hall, out in New York City.
Sure.
Played in the Big East, played against guys like Keegan Bradley and a lot of those guys from the Northeast. And then I graduated, turned pro, and got engaged in a weekend. Then we packed up, moved west, lived in Scottsdale, and then I was playing on tour there for a while before I kind of started teaching.
So tell us a little bit about, before we get into the teaching thing, tell us a little bit about the journey of what you would go through. Like, give us because it's very rare that we have guests, and we have had a couple, but it's very rare that we have guests who actually played on the tour. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there who would like to know, what's a typical week that you would, here it is, let's say it's Monday. What's going to happen this week normally? And what are the things that you go through? What's your or is there times that you practice? Is there a schedule that you have to put out? Do you have to make appearances? Do you have to do things for sponsors? Do you have to play in a pro-am? I mean, what really is going on out there? And I know a lot of them know, but we'd like to know what you experienced.
Well, I think one of the things that was one of the hardest parts about the playing on tour is the fact that, everything for a tour player, and it's just kind of the nature of the business. Like it's kind of all about you, and I didn't really enjoy that. I mean, it's like, and my wife is traveling with me, and at that time, we have 3 kids now under 4, but at that time we had a young son. And I mean, it was like, we're going to bed when I want to go to bed. We're eating when I want to eat. I mean, just the whole thing is like doing everything you can do to play good on Thursday and Friday so you can make a paycheck. So, whether I was playing on some of the mini tours or playing in, South America or Europe, I played pretty much, if the country had soil, I was playing in it. But usually it consists of either, you're either driving 8, 9, 10 hours sometimes on Sunday night to try to make it on Monday to get ready to go to take a practice round, or you're flying on Monday. And then, Monday and Tuesdays are, quite frankly, they're relaxing because of the fact that you don't have anything on the line, but there's so much stuff because you're trying to plot the course. And especially if you hadn't played the course, it's nice when you get into your more veteran years, 5, 6, and 7, because you've seen the courses before. But if you're playing a new course, I mean, you're trying to take essentially like 10, 12 rounds of notes in one round. So those practice rounds can be really stressful, just because you're trying to do so much. I mean, you get off the course and you're just mentally fried from taking all of the notes and charting greens and all, carry yardages and all that kind of stuff.
Now, how much of that is your caddy doing too? I mean, because I know that you're a team out there, but I mean, like, sure. I would think that some caddies are drawing up, charting greens and things like that, and measuring your standard yardages and positions on the course. But then there's a lot of that the player themselves are doing.
Well, I think that was one of the issues. It's also why I'm sitting as a teacher now, is that I was kind of a person that paid attention to the details, and I wanted to kind of do it on my own. Not do it on my own. I trusted my caddy; he did a great job, but I wanted to see the numbers for myself, and I probably, to be honest, I probably should have been much more of an athlete when I was doing out there and just hitting shots and doing my thing and letting him be the statistician, if you will. So I was kind of taking all of that stuff, and then we would compare notes after the round. But I mean, there's you're trying to find every single advantage you can get, whether it's knowing a certain ridge on a green, or what the cover is to this certain bunker, or all these kind of things. Because out on tour, the pins are not sitting 10 paces off the side; they're all 3 to 4 paces. So you kind of got to be able to hit your numbers right to the spot.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you want to get within 20 feet of that pin, so that you can at least maybe make birdie. And they're all tucked, so you got to know exactly where to hit it, because if you don't hit it in the right spot, then it's going to release and maybe go past where you want it to go, or not even get over a ridge, or things of that nature.
Yeah, so I mean, usually Mondays and Tuesdays were practice rounds, and they were Monday was usually kind of my fundamental Monday, where I just did the drills that I was working on. The team when I was playing. I had Mike Bender, he was my swing coach. Stan Utley, I worked with putting, and James Siekman with my short game. And then I had Pia Nilsson and Lynn Marriott from Vision 54 working on the mental side. So I had
some good company.
Yeah, so
there.
I think I had probably one of the greatest teams assembled on grass.
I'd say so. They're a good team.
Yeah, so, and little did I know that on that time, God basically had me on an 8-year mentorship, just learning their skill set, so that when I went to the teaching side, I was kind of able to jump right in and kind of help my students. So Monday and Tuesday was kind of that fundamental stuff, and doing my drills and making sure everything was in its spot. And then Wednesday was pretty light. It was just about getting my mind and resting my body. And then Thursday and Friday were go time. It was just time to perform and do whatever it took to post a score on the scorecard. Right.
So then, how long was your average day? Like, let's say, and I'm sure it was long.
I mean, it was, it depends on what time of the year it was, meaning if I was in the off season. But I mean, I would say that my typical day was, I got up at about 5:15. I was at the gym at 5:30 till 7. Then this is just a normal, like, we'll say this is an off week. And it was pretty much similar for a normal tournament week too. So I was up at 5:15, in the gym at 5:30, there till 7. Back to the hotel or my house at 7:15, eat breakfast till 7:45, 8 o'clock, maybe read a little bit. And then I was at the course from about 8:30. From about 8:30 to 10:30, I would maybe hit balls and work on wedges. And then at 10:30 to noon, I would go play 9 holes. I'd have 15, 20 minutes for lunch. Then I'd go putt for an hour, chip for another hour, play another 9 holes, hit balls for another hour. That put me at about 5:15, 5:30. Then I might hit the gym again, or I'd go home at 6, eat dinner, spend time with my wife, and go to bed.
Right.
So I mean, it was just like any other job. People are, obviously it's a great lifestyle, and it's awesome to be able to play golf, but it's not like I'm just teeing it up and.
Oh no, absolutely, it's a full-time job. I mean, and for our listeners to understand that, I mean, there's so many players who, of course, I mean, there's more people who aren't professionals than are. but they still want to play well, and they want to play the best that they possibly can.
Sure.
But I think what they don't understand when they look at tour pros is what really kind of commitment they have to playing well, and the commitment that they have to keeping themselves in shape. And I mean, you're talking about an 10-hour day there at least, and maybe even 12 hours if you're not talking about breaks in between. And so, but a lot of those players aren't even willing to put 12 hours in a week for their game, including the round of golf that they're playing. So even if they play 2 rounds of golf, they probably wouldn't put in 12 hours a week into their game.
Yeah.
So what I always try to tell my students is, we know it's impossible to do that. We're recreational players.
Sure. It's not their job.
No, it's not their job, and you don't want to turn it into that, because that could kind of make it not fun also.
Sure.
But they have to do something. So I always say to them, look, spend 20 minutes every single day doing something. If you really want to get better. I mean, that's why you're taking lessons. So if you can spend 20 minutes a day, I mean, so how do you translate all that now to what you've learned to the students that you work with now, and what are some of the things that you do with them? Are you out on the golf course? Are you having them chart courses? Or are they, I mean, and that's the players who are the better players, and then the ones who are trying to improve. I mean, what are they working on, and how are they, what do you have them doing to whittle those scores down?
Sure. So basically, when I got done playing, I basically took that mindset of having all of those coaches, and I created a facility in Dublin, Ohio called the Golf Room. And basically what we've done is we put all of the coaching that a player would need under one roof. So I've been doing this. I stopped playing my last event. I was one shot out. I had to go qualify for the PGA Tour event in Puerto Rico. That was in 2014. I missed it by a shot. Kind of last group came in, knocked me out, came back, gave lessons, never went back out. And that was, so I've been teaching about 2.5 years, I guess, 3 years.
Okay.
And when I got done playing, I basically opened a facility where we put all the coaching under one roof. So I handle the swing side. I was lucky enough to get Best Young Teacher in America on that list of Golf Digest, and then got the Best Teacher in the State list in Golf Digest this past week. And I'm part of the Golf Channel Academy, so
awesome.
Do a lot of stuff on the Golf Channel stuff. So I do the swing side, and then we have Lindsay Becker. She does the fitness side. She trained Jason Day and Luke Donald, trainer for the President's Cup team. And then we have golf psychology, custom club fitting with 10,000 options, and then the facility's public where people can practice. So I took the principle of helping players that, it's kind of like everybody, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So if I'm trying to get you to do something, let's say rotate into your left side, but your left hips aren't strong enough to actually leverage the club that way, then that's where Lindsay's coming in. So a lot of times it's kind of like a full body, full encompassing approach. I mean, lots of people can't do things just simply because they're not physically able. So, and I take more of the principle, which is probably a little bit more hard-nosed, of, let's just say, for example, the person says that they can't rotate into their hip, right? Or they can't, we'll just keep doing that. They can't rotate into their left side. So then I say, well, do you have a left hip replacement? And they go, no. And I go, well, do you have like a lumbar if your back, so you can't turn your back? And they say, no. And I go, okay, well then you're just out of shape. So that just means you have to work out and get better. Just now if a person says, hey, I can't do that because I have shoulder surgery. Okay, well then let's work around that. But in my opinion, there's swings that are built around physics and efficiency, so it allows for the maximum amount of time for the minimum amount of compensation. So we try to train the golfer to get to that. And in my opinion, because a lot of the golfers, I work with PGA Tour players. I've got some web.
All right, so we're back. So technical difficulties. So the world of of Skype, and every once in a while, a call will drop. It happens. So
yeah.
So we were talking about how you have a team assembled, and depending upon, and you were saying that if a gentleman has a problem getting over his left side, and you say to him, well, do you have a replaced hip? And they said no. And you said, well, you have bad lumbar? No. And I said, well, then you're out of shape. So you got to get into shape, and we need to do these things. So So do you find, because I know that sometimes it happens with us, because we have a fitness team and all that too, and do you find that you get some resistance from some of these students who say, well, like, I really don't want to go for the whole ball of wax here. I just came here to get some lessons and straighten my shot out.
Sure. So, I mean, I think that it really depends upon the motivation of the player, right? So, like, my dad's a 28 handicap, could care less about playing. Like, I gave him a lesson once, and I was like 16. He went out and shot 85, came back the next week and said, that's not comfortable. I don't want to do that. So I was like, some guys are like that. That's fine, right? There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, golf is a social activity. I just want to go out there and have fun and be with my buddies, right, and drink some beers and hang out. There's nothing wrong with that. But if a guy is really serious about trying to get better, then there's things that you can do, that you can try to maximize and accelerate your learning curve. Because whatever the player is, like, let's say, for example, most guys are coming over the top and they need to kind of have this external shoulder rotation with their right shoulder so they can kind of shallow the shaft a little bit. If they're not flexible enough in their right shoulder to do that, then they can't.
They're unable to do it. They're physically unable to do it, right? So then they have to do something to strengthen that to change that so that they're capable of doing it.
Yeah, and it just accelerates the learning curve, right? It just makes everything go faster. So I mean, I'm a big believer in that, and then I'm a really big believer in the fact that I think that there's kind of an epidemic, we'll call it almost, of the lack of quality practice. I mean, I'm at a course right now, we have an indoor location and an outdoor location. So the outdoor location, I mean, the range is packed to the brim every single day. And there's just guys and girls out there just kind of, right, as I kind of say, they're just kind of getting exercise. They're just kind of working on the same motor pattern.
They're just working up a sweat.
Yeah, the thing that the amateur golfer needs to know is that to make a swing change is really, really hard. And it feels quite frankly, way worse than what you think it is. Meaning if a guy is over the top, him, quote unquote, thinking he's coming on plane or slightly from the inside, I mean, he has no clue what that's even like. So, and I think a lot of this is a product of Mike and Stan and James and these guys. So I'm a really big believer in teaching with feedback to make it so, like, my little motto is that good feelings don't give proper swings. So what you think feels good does not mean it's right, but rather proper swings give proper feelings. So I kind of make the player make a proper swing, and whether they say, hey, Kyle, that feels terrible, I go, cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, that's good because it's different from what you're doing.
Right. And then
we're losing. Let me stop you just for a second, Kyle. We're losing audio. It's really low. So I don't remember. We were using headphones. Do you still have those?
Yeah. Let me see. The only thing is my battery's getting kind of low.
Is that what it is? Okay. Yeah. So that's okay. We're still good. So I think. But. Yeah, the audio is getting low, so I want the audience to be able to hear what you're saying. That's for sure, because it's important.
Yeah. Here, let me take this cover off. Maybe that'll help a little bit. There you go. That might help a little.
That's good.
So when they try to make these swing changes, I think that they have to set up stations to where they have to know if they're doing it right.
Okay.
So I'm a big believer in kind of giving them the proper feeling, which gives them the proper swing. And then they essentially, what it allows them to do is it allows them to be their own coach, and I can coach myself out of a job, and they don't need to come spend $125 or $150 for a lesson. They can do it. But what we can do at the golf room in 1 or 2 lessons, more times than not, it would take maybe some other people would take them 10 or 15, which is, it kind of satisfies the culture of today of instant gratification. So they can really, with TrackMan and we have TrackMan and BodiTrak and KVS, all these different pieces of technology, but really those just validate what we're saying. If I'm saying, hey, you're over the top, and the guy's at -10 and he's like, no, I'm not. And then we change it. We put it at 0, for example, and say, hey, we gave you a return on your investment of 100% in an hour. Like, that'd be a pretty good return on a stock for an hour. so it allows them to kind of quantify it and see how much they're really changing. So, but it is hard. I mean, I always kind of give the story. This is kind of neat that when Tiger Woods met Butch Harmon in 1997,
Right.
he was ranked 58th or so in ball striking. And in 1998, he was ranked 36th. And in 1999, he was number one in every category, which is like unprecedented. But in Tiger, in his prime, he hit 1,500 balls a day. And it took 2 years for Butch Harmon to tell Tiger Woods, hey, buddy, like, we're done. I can't do anything else, right? And Tiger needed that feeling of, like, overhauling, in a sense. Like, he's very growth mindseted, and he really needed to feel like, hey, I'm making some big changes, right? Because he enjoys that. So,
do you think that was part of his demise, Kyle? Do you think that was part of his demise?
It was almost like it wasn't. I don't know if it wasn't a challenge, but like he liked the challenge. I think that there's something to be said about that. Probably could be a book written on that. But the point being is that it took him 2 years for Butch Harmon to say, "Hey, I'm done. I got nothing left. You're winning everything under the sun, and you're great." And 1,500 balls a day. Well, most guys don't hit 1,500 balls in a month. So that would be like Butch Harmon working with Tiger on a Thursday, and then he comes back to him on Friday and says, well, I don't have it yet. What's going on? It's like Butch would look at him like, you're nuts. It's like, just be like going to the gym and bench pressing 100 pounds and then wondering why the next week you can't do 150.
Right.
It's just a process, which is I try to get all my players to really just buy in the fact that you're just trying to get 1% better a day. And over the course of time, that 1% just kind of continually increases, and then next thing you know, you're going from 86 to 85 to 84 to 83. But there's really no like silver bullets in golf, other than the ones that are in the golf cart. So,
I agree. I think that a lot of problems with a lot of players who come for lessons is they have a higher expectation level than they're capable of. In other words, they expect to take 5 lessons and get a lot better in 5 lessons. Or they expect to take 1 or 2 lessons and expect to get a lot better in those lessons. Right. And that's difficult to do. I mean, it's you have to be super talented to do something like that. And even if you are, you're still not going to get a lot better than you are at this moment, I mean, that's not that easy to do. So convincing people of that is part of our job too, without a doubt.
Right. Yeah, it takes a lot of time to sharpen the sword, but you just give people the right stations of where they can actually practice, and that's why I think that there's a lot of value, and we do a lot of coaching programs at the golf room with supervised practices, and we have an elite junior academy. We're kind of seeing players regularly once a week, just kind of in a group setting. So it's a supervised practice. They get some lessons and stuff, but then they're also just, we set up their stations, and we can kind of keep soft eyes on them, as we say.
Sure. So for players who want to come work with you, who are willing to go to Ohio, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you? What is your website? Give our listeners all that info.
Yeah, so they go to thegolfroom.com. It's that, and then they can book lessons right there. That we have everything's basically online. So there's an online booking system. They can follow me at YouTube. I do a lot of the media for TrackMan and Golf Channel and Golf Digest and stuff. So they can follow my YouTube page, and then the social media, obviously on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. That's all under the Golf Room as well. So that's kind of how you can follow everything that we're doing, kind of see some of the changes that we're making. Nice.
Now, how do you like your lifestyle now as compared to before? I mean, are you happier now? Are you feel more content that what you're doing?
I think, it's the fact that I'm right where God wants me to be. The way I'm wired and how I was as a player. I was a good player. I mean, I shot 60 and I shot 23 under in 36 holes once an event, and I mean, I could. I won probably over 15 professional events and stuff, so I was doing okay. But I was just wired in a way that I just kind of couldn't get out of my own way. I was kind of notoriously kind of a slower player, but it was just because I was so methodical. It was almost like I was so in tune with what my body was doing and what my mind was doing that I just couldn't, all the different Vision 54 stuff and swing stuff and all that kind of stuff. It was hard for me to just go out there and just say, who cares? Like,
just play.
Just let it rip. So I was just kind of built to be a coach, and I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. So I have zero regrets. And going back to the beginning of the conversation, I mean, with the way that my lifestyle was as a tour player, I look back and I don't have any regrets. I gave it everything I possibly could. I tried my tail off and put my best foot forward. And it, so I kind of look back and say, oh, I wish I would have done this or done that, or, I had a great sponsorship team where, my wife was able to travel with me, and it was a great time. I mean, it was, I would never take it back for anything in the world, but I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And the golf rooms kind of grown faster than I could have ever imagined.
Well, I think too that what you did, I mean, going through that, it makes you appreciate more what you're doing now too, and saying, should I have done that? Should I have tried? You tried it, you did it. I mean, and now you, like you said, you don't have any regrets. You did the best you could, and now you're happy with the life that you're living.
Yeah, it's great to be. We've got all these players I'm working with, and it's great to invest in their lives and just help them, enjoy the game more and have more fun on the golf course and hit better shots and break their scoring records and win tournaments. And it's great, and just help form character, especially in some of these junior golfers.
Yeah.
And just trying to teach them the mentality of what it takes to be at the top 1%. If you want to be in the top 1%, you got to train like the top 1%. It's kind of pretty much that simple. So You can't do what everybody else does.
Yeah, you don't live the same kind of life. There's a lot of things you have to give up. And some people, don't want to do that, and some people are willing to. Okay, so really, we're having a lot of technical difficulties here, but that's okay because we're back. And so what you were saying was, no regrets. I mean, you're really pleased with where you are. You're really pleased that you're helping others, and doing what God intended you to do. Finally.
Yeah, which is way different than the lifestyle of a tour player, right? I mean, and by no fault of, it's just a part of the profession. The profession is do what I need to do so that I can play good. So it's, honey, we're going to dinner at 6. We're going back, and it's 8:30. I have a 7 a.m. tea time, so you're going to bed. Well, honey, then she'll say, well, Kyle, it's 8:30 at night. Say, I don't care.
Yeah, well, I mean, really, when you come down to it, and I hate to say it, but if you don't play good, you're not eating. I mean,
right.
You're not eating. So it's like, honey, do you want to eat? Or, and it's like you kind of knew this going into here when you married me, didn't you? It's
right. So it's,
but it is hard.
There's a lot to that, especially when you're starting out on tour and you're just kind of getting by. I mean, you're just grinding, and you're going from tour stop to Monday qualifier, and you're driving, and I mean, you're putting 150,000 miles on your car, and it's a grind, and you're standing over a 4-foot putt that says, if I don't make this, I mean, I once had to go down to Argentina, and I had to Monday qualify into this Argentina event. It actually wasn't in Argentina, it was in Uruguay. I was in California. I played a tournament. I flew home. I got back at about 11 in the morning because I took the red eye. And then I had got into the tournament in Argentina. So I had flown. I was home for about 2 hours. And while driving to the airport, I bought my visa and basically, bought my papers to get into the country like midair.
Right.
So, I mean, that's just kind of, but if you get a chance to start, you just go. But going back to that Uruguayan event, I went down there. I had to Monday qualify. I mean, you're flying to Uruguay, which is on the southern tip of South America. And if you don't get in the qualifier and you don't get through, you're flying home. I mean, that's quite a gamble. Now, luckily, I had kind of the financing, and I had a great team of investors behind me that afforded me the opportunity to do that. But that's some stressful. I mean, I ended up going into a playoff. I was one for 5, one spot with 5 guys. I ended up getting out, luckily, but, but all those good experiences, those allowed me to be kind of a good coach, because how am I going to teach in my opinion, how am I going to teach a PGA Tour player to kind of what to think. And I mean, I haven't stood over a putt to win a PGA Tour event, but I've stood over putts to keep my card, and that's just maybe even more nerve wracking than the tour event. You miss the tour event, you still make $500,000. So standing over those and saying, hey, what do you think? How do you think? What do you do? All that kind of stuff, and being able to relate to it and know what that's like. I think that's important as a coach, just to come as a coach, and I can talk about the science side to it, but then also as a player and say it's about posting a number on a scorecard too. It's not just about how it looks on a camera necessarily.
Well, it's a tough life. I mean, it's people think that they look at tour pros and they think that, well, they got it made. They play golf for a living. All they do is go out and play golf, and they practice all day, and their life is just a ball of cherries, and it's not. It's just like when you look at a rock star. I mean, they have to write tunes. They got to come up with songs for the next album, or they're not going to get signed again, and then they're not going to be playing, and they're not going to be making money, and they got to practice, and they got to do. There's things that they have to do, and it's not all, glitter and thick steaks and lobster. I mean, it's
Sure.
It's work, and a lot of people don't realize that, and they really know what it's like to be in that situation. But
yeah,
look,
I'm much happier now.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. I think that a lot of times there's things that, like we talked about earlier, there's things that you got to do to know where you should be, and there's journeys that you got to take, and sometimes they're longer than we anticipated, and sometimes they're shorter than we anticipated.
Yeah.
And as long as we end up in the right place, then that's really all that matters in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, look, it was great having you with us.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you taking the time out. And
Sorry about the technical
we'll get all that. Don't worry about the technical difficulties. That's okay. These things happen when equipment isn't working and you got to use your phone to shoot video of your students. I mean, it's right. And that's okay. It's not a big deal. And we'll fix, as they say, we'll try to fix it in post. And all our listeners are going to be really glad that you were on, and even with the technical difficulties.
Yeah.
They'll be happy with the information that you
Hopefully
gave.
the golf room.
Yep.
All
Great.
right. Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Until we meet again, try to keep it in the short grass.
Thanks.
All right. Take care.